All right, Joe, officially welcome to the Wealth Juice podcast. I've been excited about this one, and we've been bonding. Well, actually, been mourning together over the Birds' loss. But we've been messaging back and forth. I know you're originally from South Jersey, which is really cool. I always like to chat with people who are from like the area that I grew up in. Now you're out in Boise, and we'll get to that. But I just want to say thank you for coming on the show. I love what you're doing on social media. I love what you're building. So we appreciate your time.
I appreciate being here, man. Excited to be on the show.
Cool. So a way I like to start these shows, I just want to go back, and especially because you're from South Jersey, I'm curious, how does somebody go from living in South Jersey to living in Boise? And we'll get to that, but talk to us about your pre-finding financial independence, your pre-real estate, like all of this. How'd you get the bug? And just tell us a little bit about how you grew up.
Yeah, it really starts when I was younger, living in South Jersey. My parents were divorced, and so I split time, my mom and my dad, and neither one of them, they just worked a W-2. My dad was a printer pretty much till the day he died. Just passed away last year at 59. And so just another reason to go after financial freedom. You just never know how much time you have left. And it's funny, we're leaving next week to go to Hawaii. We take our kids there every year, and we're bringing friends with us. And I was just outside playing basketball 2 days ago with my kids, and I said, hey, you guys know Pop's never been to Hawaii. And they said, why not? And I said, because he had a job. And I don't mean it to be rude for anyone that has one, but when you think about you only got so much time, especially with kids, you don't get to travel when your boss tells you can't go here or can't go there, when to take PTO. And so anyway, I just saw that growing up, and I realized I wanted something more. And so when I turned 18 and graduated, I was like, I got to do something different than what my life is projected to be. And so I joined the United States Marine Corps 9 days after graduating high school, traveled the world, lived in Japan for 2 years, deployed all out there, got orders out to San Diego. If you guys have ever been to San Diego, you know how miserable it is. It's sunny and 70, 360 days a year. So
42, and I don't think it's raining today, but that's a rare thing. So it's 42 degrees here in Philadelphia right now. Yeah.
Jeez, yeah. So I got orders there, got to go to Iraq. When I got back from Iraq, I had this defining moment, should I say, where I was like, hey, should I stay in San Diego with the sunshine? And I was dating a Chargers cheerleader at the time. Or do I go back to South Jersey, where I know everything and everyone? And I just felt, for me, like God was like, you can't leave. And so I stayed out there. And then as I started being out in San Diego, you know, if you've ever been out there, that's like it's kind of like a New York City, but more chill and beachy. But it was like, I could go to a mastermind any night of the week with 6, 7, 8-figure earners. And I just loved the business. I got the bug. I started my business journey, actually network marketing with Amway. Did that for about 5 years, but I learned a lot about personal development, people skills, money. And so then I went my own way, and I got started in coaching, professional coaching with Tony Robbins. I was in business with his son. That's how I kind of got linked up, and got my master's degree in performance psychology, not because I wanted to, just the Marine Corps paid for it. So I was like, I'll get paid to go to school. Okay. And then started coaching. And as I started coaching, what happened was I started getting a lot of real estate investors, and I started coaching them through some of their challenges, like raising capital or identifying deals. And I started learning over time, like they would break through. And then all of a sudden they're like, I'm leaving my job next week, or I want to leave my job next week. And it's like, they created the cash flow. And after helping so many people become financially free, the light bulb kind of went off for us, me and my wife. We're like, why aren't we doing this? Right. And so we started asking ourselves in the beginning, when we first got married, or got together, how can we earn money anywhere in the world? Because your questions direct your focus. And we realized that was the wrong question. And after a while, we did that. She became a coach. We worked anywhere in the world, but we realized we asked the wrong question. The right question we started asking, and we've been on since, is how do we create an abundance of passive income anywhere in the world? And so that's when we started investing in real estate. And now not only do we help people achieve financial freedom in real estate, we've done it ourselves, and we're always going to continue buying assets. And so that's kind of how we got involved in the journey, kind of went through the coaching path and to where we are today.
Love it, man. I appreciate you sharing. You know, it's funny. I just had a conversation with somebody who's going to come on the podcast in a couple of weeks. And I was like almost like looking up to him in this conversation. He was like mid 40s, and he was telling me that he has $50,000 a month in passive income. And my like reaction to that was, wow, I talk to people every day who don't think it's possible to get $1,000 a month, or who don't think it's possible to achieve it at all. Like it's somewhere locked in their brain of how they grew up. And to have a conversation with someone who's at that level, that's like, yeah, he's like, yeah, I work because I love it, but I don't need to. And I'm like, $50,000 a month. Like, I don't even know if you could spend that, right? Some people, I'm sure you could, but it's just like getting in that room and learning about those levels. It's changed everything for me. And it sounds like that's what's happened to you. You identified something and you're like, I can go do this too. So I want to talk about how you started. Like, talk to us about those first couple deals. And I know you're doing the co-living model now, which is awesome. But did you start out that way?
No. In the beginning, my wife and I, as we started investing in real estate, the very first thing we did was we got an Airbnb, and we did it with a business partner 2 hours from us because we really wanted our kids to have this memory of going up to the mountains, playing in the snow, and enjoying that. And when we weren't there, we were able to Airbnb it, and so we actually used a second home loan, which allowed us to only have to pay 5%. So there's awesome strategies you guys can use to get into deals cheaper. And but we started doing that, and that was great, and it's been great. We are in the process of selling that, but then we did invest in a couple other things. We did a passive self-storage unit that we did on the East Coast. We invested in a startup house flipping company that we don't have to mess with. It's already, there's a team in place, so they handle all that. We get to get distributions in the next year or two. So we kind of just started playing in there. But then what happened was, as I was building my social media, I interviewed a buddy who too was making $40,000, $50,000 a month using the co-living model. And I was like, after I got off the interview, I was like, babe, I told my wife, I was like, hey, babe, you need to listen to this, because she was on board, but she wasn't all in, right? So there's a difference. Your spouse is like, okay, yeah, go ahead and invest, versus, hey, I want to help. I want to be in, let's go. And so after that, she was all in. She's like, we could easily do this. And that's how we started getting into co-living. Now, ironically, on the flip side, when I first met my wife, and I was back in 2014, I was kind of coming out of a season where I was in like $40,000 credit card debt. I was kind of broke, living paycheck to paycheck. And so with that being said, I was living with 6 other people in this house. I ran the house. It was my lease on it. The only challenge was I didn't own the property, but I was running this model over a decade ago, and I didn't even know. And last month, I flew out to San Diego. I was on Rich Summers' podcast. If you haven't checked out his podcast, he's awesome.
Yeah, I love Rich. He's been on ours. He's a good friend of ours. Yeah.
Sweet. So I was down there, and we went to the house. My wife and I went to record some content of the property that we were living in, doing this co-living process. And so it was just awesome to go back and see full circle. And now here we are. That's what we focus on. That's what we're teaching people. That's the community we're building around, is helping people get their first $2,000 to $5,000 a month in passive income. So it's exciting. Yeah.
Love it. So I have a couple things that I wanted to like dig a little bit deeper on that I heard that you say. Yeah. So I have conversations with people all the time that have to go convince their spouse that this is the right thing to do. And this isn't a relationship show. So let me just say that there. But how awesome is it to have somebody that you're like, hey, babe, we should go look at this. You show her, she goes from being on board to all in, and then you're a team and you can go do it together. And this is why I'm getting married in November. So I tell my fiance, like, this is, thank you. Yeah. I tell her, this is what we're doing. Like, and she can say, hey, I don't want to do this. That's totally fine. But I show her I love the model of like, one person goes out and like tries to make it, and the other person is like not involved at all or doesn't see the vision. If you both see the vision, I feel like it can go so much smoother. Can you talk to like, it doesn't sound like you had to convince your wife very much, but can you talk to like the support level and how that's like propelled you in your journey?
Yeah. Man, I could touch on two paths here. The first one, if your spouse isn't supporting, or first, if you're dating someone and your visions don't align, or values, like that's a big indicator. Like you might have some turbulence if you're a dreamer, a visionary, you're a go-getter. You might have some turbulence in that relationship. And can it work? Absolutely. But it's so much easier when they have the same vision or they're bought into a vision. You guys have a collective vision and the values are aligned and you guys run together. I'm blessed because, well, right before I met my wife, I actually created a list of everything I wanted in a partner, and ambitious was one of them. Like a go-getter was part of it. And so I really believe God blessed me with my wife. And so now it's so much easier where we both, and the thing is with the vision, you got to attach it to something your partner wants. Like if your partner loves shopping, like, hey, once we hit 25 grand a month in passive income, you can go and spend $5,000 a month every month on stuff you want to buy. They're like, oh, okay. Well, then why aren't you out there busting your butt, right? So anyway, it's such a blessing, though, to have it. And it doesn't mean we work perfectly together. We have our speed bumps working together. But with her, it's like she's always looking for our next deal. I was just sharing, I share with you like how I just have a check right here of $100K that just came in from our next investor. My wife's pumped about it. She's pumped to go find our next deal. She's calling agents. So we're able to, for me, I feel like we're able to, 10x our efforts, because if you ever read the book, 10x is easier than 2x, right? 2x you can do yourself. 10x you need to have a team or a teammate with you. And it's so easy when you have that. And she's able to handle things I don't want to, and vice versa. So we make a great team doing it together.
Yeah. Whether you're a new or experienced landlord, one of the biggest hiccups that people run into that prevents them from scaling their portfolio is lack of organization. And most people think that they're going to be fixing toilets at 2 a.m. because of that lack of organization. They're going to be getting calls from tenants, and tenants are going to destroy their house. One of the things that fixes that completely is easy landlord forms. When you're self-managing property, staying organized is one of the most important things that will allow you to scale. Easy Landlord Forms has tenant screening services, state-specific lease agreements, online rent payment systems, and over 500 landlord forms. So you can keep everything in one hub, scale your rental portfolio with ease, and most importantly, make landlording and real estate investing as passive as it can possibly be. So go to easylandlordforms.com and you can use the code WealthJuice, which will give you 20% off any order. I think it's awesome. I want to talk about the co-living model, and maybe if you can give me some examples of some of the deals that you're looking at that are working out, because there is this macro trend and macro thought processes. Like real estate investing is it's not that it's dead, but it's so much harder than it used to be, and there's no deals out there. And it's like, to me, it couldn't be further from the truth. It's not as easy as it was when I started in 2018. That is 100% a fact. But the information is so much more abundant that if you build a team, I think it in some ways it can be even easier. So for me, I'm looking at like your model and I'm thinking, you have a post on your Instagram that's $3,500 a month in cash flow from one deal. I think you were telling me about how you turned a 5-bedroom into an 8-bedroom. Maybe walk us through a sample of something that you've done, because there people have talked about co-living, and I know the model. I've done it kind of like even my first house hack, I rented out 2 of the bedrooms. I don't know if you call it co-living, maybe it is, but give me some examples of what you've done and maybe a deal if you could walk through to show people really the power in this strategy.
Yeah, we'll play with that one right there. Is after we learned this strategy, and here's the thing: a lot of people think like, oh, it's just rent by the room, and that's great if you believe that. But I will tell you, with that belief system, you're going to run into a massive amount of headaches. The thing that really propelled us to dive full in was we had a system and process to streamline everything, and without that, it can be a nightmare. So, but what we did is we bought this 5-bedroom, 2-bath house, and ultimately we turned it into an 8-bedroom, 3-bath house. We had to get it. We took out the bathroom, shortened one of the bedrooms, put 2 60-inch bathrooms together, the wet wall in the middle. This way it wasn't making noise on either side. We have a basement. We had a basement downstairs that we cut a hole in one of the walls, and then we put up a wall in the basement and made 2 bedrooms and a hallway. And that allowed us to get a total of 8 bedrooms. We turned the living room into a bedroom. We could turn the dining room into a 9th bedroom, but we kind of have that as a common area for people. But The problem we had initially was we went with a DSCR loan, debt service coverage ratio loan. If you guys don't know what that means, it's not based on you don't qualify on your income, but what the property qualifies for. And the challenge we ran into is even though it was a 5.2, we got the appraiser came back with comps as a 3.2 for rent. And we're like, what's going on? We don't qualify for that 1-to-1 ratio. And so long story short, we ended up having to put 30% down, which was not fun, dropping some more money. But it was all because the bedrooms downstairs did not have egress windows, even though from the conception of the house, even though it's on record that those were bedrooms from day one, they wouldn't give us appraisal rents for those 2 rooms. So that's what led to that. So what we had to do is four egress windows, had to dig down deep, cut the foundation, put windows in. And plus it's a safety thing for tenants too. But anyway, we shifted that. We rehabbed the entire place, forced appreciation on that. I can go ahead and pull out probably $150K. And if I get my rate that I'm looking at, we'll be able to pull out $500K and only lose $500 a month in cash flow. So we'll still cash flow over $3,000 from that one deal. But the systems and process allows us to do all the heavy lifting up front with tenant screening and rules and processes and all. And now we probably spend maybe max 20 minutes a week on this deal, if that. So less than an hour a month probably that we spend just on this one deal. And so now we just got that capital from the investor and we're going to get our second deal and we're going to be off to the races, getting our third and fourth by the end of the year.
Love it. So it's funny that you mentioned this because I was just thinking about how I used to visit some friends in New York City and this isn't exactly 100% parallel, but I remember they were renting a place for $8,000 a month. And it was in I think it was in the East Village. It was in a really nice area, financial district, I think, in Manhattan. And what they did is they turned the dining room and the living room into bedrooms. And you had like this little tiny living room area. And then you had to walk through the kitchen of where somebody would be having like a kitchen table. They turned that into a bedroom. So they turned a 2-bed into a 4-bed. So they were able to pay $2,000 a month each. And I thought about that. This was years ago before I was even investing in real estate, 10 years ago. But you made me think of it. And I know New York is not the place that's not really co-living. That's just trying to reduce your rent because you don't own the place. But tell me about where you're looking location-wise that you feel like this makes the most sense. Because can it work anywhere? Is it close to hospitals, education institutions? Where are these properties that you're finding them, and what do you suggest for people?
Yeah, I will say most major cities, like downtown areas probably aren't working for you, right? But within a 30, maybe 45-minute range, but I'd like to stay under 30 minutes away from cities. I just had a client in Greensville, South Carolina, who he just did the same thing. We coached him through getting his first property. He got rehab done. His contractors finished putting a bathroom together, like putting a new bathroom in and walls up. And now he's about to have his first tenant move in. So I will say a lot. What I'm finding, depending on your cash flow needs. Now, a lot of people, when they buy long-term rental, they're looking at $200 a month. Bigger Pockets used to say, buy a rental, make $100 a door. Those days, they're still around, but the question's why? Why would you do that? So if we could teach you how to 10x your cash flow, or in some cases 20x your cash flow, why wouldn't you want to do that? So I will say usually around under $500,000 for buying a property. Those are great. I like going to red states only because that are landlord friendly too. People are doing it in other states. It's just, you got to be prepared that if you have a certain tenant that kind of goes crazy, it's going to be a little challenge to get them out. You're going to lose some cash flow. But that's the beauty of this model is I can lose one revenue stream and still be cash flowing more than, someone that has 20 long-term family homes. So with that being said, what we're looking at is we want to make sure that we can get anywhere from 6 to 10 bedrooms per property, depending on your buy box and like what you're looking to cash flow. I feel like we're spoiled because our minimum is $2,500 a month in cash flow. I'm more focused on cash flow and cash on cash, right? We won't look on a deal that we can't get 20% cash on cash or greater, but I'm like, cash flow is king. You only need 4 properties at $2,500 a month to make $10K a month. And most people, their bills are under that, unless you're living in New York City. So you could literally be financially free. And my definition of financial freedom is having one more dollar in passive income than you do in your expenses and bills, and you are financially free. Now, the quality of life probably stinks. You can't do much, but you start building from there. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's perfect. So for the example of like the 5-bed, turning it into an 8-bed, do you have to have like a certain layout to this house? Like, do you have to have like a specific common area, and then the bedrooms kind of like branch out from there? And then also turning something in from a 5-bed to an 8-bed, is there like township permitting? Because I feel like at least in Philadelphia, maybe this wouldn't work here, but having that many bedrooms, it's considered like a brothel or something like that. I don't know if that's just female. Forgive me, people. I don't really know, but I'm just saying, like, I think a certain number of people staying in a room is like maybe it's frowned upon. Can you talk to that, or is that like, why you're going to red states? Maybe they care less.
Yeah. Great question. Every city's different. Every county's different. Co-living, because of the housing crisis, there's a lot of cities that are starting to be very much in favor of it. There's a lot of people opposed because they're like, hey, you're living in a hotel, you're creating a hotel in a single family home, right? I love it because I say I'm getting multifamily returns in single family homes with their pricing, right? So, but everyone has their own view. What I will say is that most cities have the regulations. I've found that for me, I'm under the impression of ask for forgiveness later if you need to, instead of asking for permission right up front. And so I know there's certain areas where you might only be able to have 5 people in a house that are not related, and that's where knowing your numbers is so key, right? Are you still cash flowing at 5? If you're still cash flowing $700-800 a month and you have 5 people, then that's a major win. So if you had to reduce the people in your property, you can still cash flow. And so I just found that it's not something I had to come up with yet with the city, but I did have a guy in my city who they emailed the county and they said, yeah, you guys are allowed up to 8 people. So I screenshotted that to say, hey, I have permission from the city to do that. So,
right, proof.
Yeah,
and then in terms of like the layout of the property, does it have to be specific, or can you make co-living work when it's not real? Like, do you have to move walls around, I guess, every time?
No, great question. I look at properties that have more open space, that I can just put walls up, because it's so much easier to you could frame, if you have an electrician and a framer there, they can frame it up and you could literally have drywall, tape, and mud all done in one day with electrical if you were really on it. But usually a weekend's enough. So I look at big open spaces, like we took our basement, we put a wall down the hallway, and we just put, a horizontal wall up to create 2 bedrooms. You can always do the living room. Depending on how big that is, you can charge more. Like, I think our living room is like 15 by 17. And so we charge, I think we charge like $950 for that, because it's a little more. And then we give incentives, right? We give, hey, you get a parking spot in the driveway instead of along the street, which, by the way, parking is a huge deal breaker for co-living. And then we have people are sharing baths. And so the ones that pay the highest rent are the ones that get a parking spot, and they get, less people per bathroom. So we do incentives for people.
Hey, let me pause the episode real quick. Let me know if this sounds like you. You're making 6 figures, you're climbing the corporate ladder, investing in your 401k and your Roth IRA, and maybe even a brokerage account. But deep down, you're asking yourself, is this really it? Like, am I just going to do this thing for the next 30 years and hope to retire in my 60s? That was exactly us just a few years back. We were curious and excited about real estate, but overwhelmed and without a roadmap. If you fast forward to today, we've built a portfolio of over 80 cash flowing units and grown our net worth to over $2 million. We made it our mission to help busy professionals like you take that same leap and start building generational wealth for yourself and your family. That's exactly why we created the Wealth Juice Inner Circle, a private real estate investing community designed to help you get your first rental property under your belt in as little as 90 days. Inside, you'll get direct access to us, our full investing network, private off-market deals, and our exact playbook, and a community of investors who are closing deals every single week. That first property changed everything for us. We always talk about it. It was the true foundation for building generational wealth. And honestly, if we had access to something like this when we first started, we'd be 10 times further along by now. So if this sounds just like you, click the link in our show notes and schedule a call with me. Yes, me. I'll be taking the calls. We'll go over your goals, map out a plan, and get you ready to close your first deal. Let's get it. So in theory, like, somebody comes in there, they're paying $1,000 a month or something like that to live in 7 or 8 bedrooms. The property's bringing in $8,000 a month in income, and you were able to buy a property. You mentioned $400,000 or $500,000. Your mortgage in that situation could be $3,500, $4,000, something like that. So that's how you're able to get this spread in this cash flow. My question for you is based on going to the DSCR, like you mentioned the 1-to-1. So what they're looking for in the DSCR and why this didn't work maybe on that specific property is because what they're saying is that if you're comping out 3 beds or 4 beds and that needed to be, let's say your mortgage was $4,000 a month, they needed to bring in $4,000 a month in rental income from a 3 or 4 bed to be able to give you the DSCR to not like base it off of your personal income. And then it worked because you're able to put more money down. Is that, am I gauging that correctly?
So when we do it, well, kind of, yes. The DSCR, they can either use a long-term rental income or short-term rental, depending on your DSCR lender. And so they got it. So for us, the long-term rent for that area for our property was about $2,800 a month. The comps for 5.2 were around there or above $2,800 a month, so they could do that. But when we got, because there was no egress windows, they counted the property as a 3.2, so they pulled 3.2 rents, and it was like $2,300 a month. So we couldn't, it wouldn't cover it, right? And so they're like, hey, the only way to get this deal done is put an extra, percentage down. So that's what we had to do. As we go and refinance or pull money out and everything, we'll be able to work with lenders who are like, wow, here's all the income you have coming in, and we'll base it off of that and the lending process there. So, and here's a trick, and this is for anyone. This is something I learned from a really good buddy of mine who develops apartment complexes and even did one out here in Boise. One thing we started doing was if we were giving an incentive for someone to move in, like say $300 off first month's rent, we would say, okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to pay the full $800, but we're going to reimburse you with a gift card of $300, a Visa gift card of $300. And you might be thinking like, okay, well, why would you do that? Why don't you just have them pay $500? Well, it's because when you go for refinancing or future funding, you want to show how much gross income you actually brought in, and then your expenses written off afterwards. So that gives us an extra $300. You do that a couple times a year through 8 bedrooms, you're looking at, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 potentially in income that you just missed out on showing that could have helped you qualify for your next deal. So that was a huge trick that I learned. So we don't ever take money off. We always give them a gift card back.
So it's like NOI kind of in the same thing that you're looking at, like a multifamily property where the comps are not going to be neighborhood homes. They're going to be like, what does this property bring in? And each dollar is able to be a multiplier. So on a sale or refi, which is, that's awesome. I'm curious about your strategy in terms of, it seems like people are able to invest with you. Like you mentioned, you showed me this $100K check. Someone can give you a $100K check. Maybe they have to know, like, and trust you. You have to build a relationship. But do you go find these properties for people and help them go buy their own, or is the majority of it like, look, I'm the expert. I can go find these, and you can invest as kind of like a joint venture type thing, and I'll give you a return on your money? Or do you do both of those?
We're open to doing those with like a JV thing. But right now, what we're doing is we're giving them a guaranteed return on their money. So anywhere from 8 to 9% is where we're at. And so for those that are like, look, I love what I do. Eventually I'd like financial freedom. I make a good multiple 6-figure income. I just have this money sitting here losing to inflation. I'm like, I'll give you a guaranteed percentage on that, regardless of what happens in the marketplace, stock market. and they can guarantee on that check every month. So that's what we've been doing. We're open to doing that, but we're also like, why don't you just join our community and we'll teach you how to do it? Or you can meet someone in there you can partner with. They'll do the work, you bring the money, and it could be a win-win.
I want to get to talking about your community too. A financial freedom coach. I like the way that you phrase that. I don't think there's many people calling themselves financial freedom coaches out there. And obviously it's pretty sexy to be like, I want, who doesn't want financial freedom? So talk to me about the community and what you do in there and what it entails. Because obviously this sparked something for you and you were like, you know what? I say this sometimes, like if I know something and I'm not building in public and I'm not sharing it online, I'm not giving out the information, whether it's free or I'm charging for it, I'm still doing a disservice, because if it's affected my life in a positive way and it can help you, that's why I'm a mentor and a coach, right? And if I'm not a fit for you, that's fine. That's cool. Do your thing. But I'm just saying, like, it's here if you want it. So, is it a similar process? Like, I know you came from the coaching world. So talk to me about starting that, what that was like.
Yeah. So I came into this environment because, like real estate, because of my, peak performance coaching. And then all of a sudden, so many communities that I've been a part of, they're like, hey, can you do some mindset coaching for people? Because they do great at strategy and giving the nuts and bolts of how to get a multifamily or self-storage. But it's one thing to be like, oh, I want to go get an asset, but it's another when you have to, put $100,000 or more on the line, right? The fear, even if the numbers make sense and you're going to make money, it's the stories that we tell ourselves. And that there's so many times I've seen people back out. And so I've started coaching in these communities and really helping these community owners with their people to be able to break through their limiting beliefs. And so as we started doing this, people started reaching out. People hired me for one-on-one coaching to help them with our model. And what I found was it's so much easier and it gives me a better quality of life, me and my wife, when we could teach a one-to-many model instead of one-to-one. I've been doing one-to-one for over the last decade. I've done 45,000 one-on-one coaching calls over my career. And so I'm like, okay, the one-to-many model is better. Plus, what I've found is that within a community, you start meeting people, connecting with people. You are a product of your environment, right? Like that is a massive principle in life. That's why you want to get in, masterminds and these types of communities, get around people and rub shoulders with them. So not only can you learn, but also you start to get elevated. We have a saying, right, that you guys have probably heard before, but a rising tide raises all ships. So when my client goes and gets a deal, now someone else is like, oh, I gotta go get my deal, right? And so it's like this. We're raising each other up in it, and so we'll have mindset coachings in it. We're launching here. It's January 14th. We're launching in just over a month, but we have a waiting list of people who've been reaching out, and so we're like, we want to make sure everything's clean and cut and ready to go. I've been in a lot of communities, so I see what works and I see what doesn't work. And so we're going to eliminate a lot of that, but we're going to have lenders, DSCR lenders, private money. We're going to have people coming in, talking around all of this, agents, what to look for, co-living experts too. So we're going to have a plethora of people coming in, but we're also going to have the mindset component in there that I know is massive for people. So it's, I feel like we have the perfect storm. And even in the toughest market right now, we're able to 10x people's cash flow, minimize their risk significantly, and get them out of their corporate job faster than ever before. So,
well, I can't speak enough to the power of community and networking. I mean, the only reason that Ryan and I have 50 or so units in, our deals that we've done in New Hampshire and Vermont is because we interviewed a gentleman on the podcast who had a need for our partnership to fit. And now we buy one property a quarter with him, and we're co-GPs on these deals. And it's because we started to share our story and get in rooms. And it doesn't, and I think people look at this the wrong way. They're like, I need to go to a big seminar and pass out business cards, and then they get lost, and it's like, you don't know how to follow up. But like having the accountability of weekly or monthly or showing up all the time and really digging your heels into a community and bringing value in the way that you can. I mean, it's especially right now. I mean, you're 2,500 miles away from me. We have the Philly Jersey connection, but we're talking like this. We're creating a relationship. Now, if I think of anything co-living, I'm like, I got to talk to Joe. So it's like that is the name of the game, to get into rooms with people who are doing what you want to do. And I've said it a number of times, but I feel like it's worth like stamping it and repeating and saying it, because I think people have this lone wolf mentality. Like, I got to go do it alone. I don't want to pay to be in a community. And I've just seen it over and over. The more money that I spend on myself, the more that I learn, okay, what I shouldn't do, what I should do. And it creates these new forks in the road. And I feel like it makes me a better person, investor, real estate professional, all the above. So wasn't really a question there, but I didn't know if you have anything to add.
No. There's a couple of things that you brought up. First and foremost, anyone that's listening, that's part of your community, they understand the power of it, right? Like, that's why you were sharing like success of people that you have in your community. And so I think it's so important to be in something with people who are like-minded. There's synergy. It's kind of like a silly analogy, but when women spend a lot of time together, their periods sync up, right? And link up. And so when you're around people who are go-getters, it just inspires you to do more. And yes, you do need to pay, right? Like, you don't get, the people who get something for free are usually the ones that do nothing with it. That's why I always charge and I always pay, is because I pay to be in a mastermind. I pay $12,000 a year last year for the last 4 years to be in this one community. And then I paid $15,000 to be part of this influencers community where we had 4 in-person meetings and that was it. So, I hired a marketing coach. I paid this company $21,000 and it flopped. I didn't learn anything, right? And so you're going to take your swings, you're going to miss, but then once you find the one that works, you need to go all in on it. And the reason why you pay, I wanted to get back to this, is because with the accountability of putting your money where your mouth is, you'll make sure when you want to give up, you're going to be like, man, I paid this money. I need to get I need to get value out of this. So I got to plug in more. And so, and there's just something when you exchange something like a value, there's money needs a flow. Money needs a move. If you're hoarding it up and you're wondering why you're not getting ahead, except you're trying to save, and saving your way to wealth is never the answer. I've never met anyone that's ever saved themselves the wealth, but I'll say this and I'll stop on my rant here. When people get to the point where they're like, oh, should I invest in something like your community, right? Money might be a challenge around it. I was just sharing with someone yesterday a quote that whenever I hit that kind of pinnacle point, do I do it? Do I not? Is a quote that hit me that says, successful people make decisions based on where they're going, not their current circumstances. And I will tell you, I've seen it time and time again. I can't tell you how many people, they reach out to me for coaching and they're like, oh, I just can't afford it. And they're not willing to fight for it or go figure the money part out. And a year, 2 years down the line, they're in the same position, if not worse. And I'm like, you just wasted time. Money comes and goes, but time you never get back. And coaching, communities, masterminds, what they actually are doing is folding time for you. And you got to ask yourself, what's more important? Your couple $1,000, $10,000 or whatever it might be, or your time? And so
I don't know if I've ever resonated with anything more, man. I think I have a text that I've kept from one of our members of our community that just like really inspired me. And he said like, he's like, all my friends and family are congratulating me for getting my first deal done. He's a 27-year-old, I say kid, but like to me, it's just like, I felt like he's like a younger brother, but he got his first triplex under contract. He's living there. He's renovating it right now. He has this house hack. And he texted me and he goes, people are congratulating me. And he's like, his words were, I humbly chuckle because Wealth Juice gave me all the tools and essentially handed me the game board. And I did it in 3 months where I would have taken me 18 without it. And I only say that because it's just social proof for me that it's like, look, if you dive into something, and this guy was on every call and he was like, I'm doing this. I invested with you. Like he was so decisive. And I have conversations with people who exactly what you just said, Joe. I will have this conversation and then a year later I check in to see where they're at, or 6 months, and they're in the same position and they wonder why. And look, I don't need your money. It's not this. That's not what this podcast is about. It's more so like, I feel like I have this tool and this gift to like show you the road. And like, if it worked for me, it can work for you. I'm not that smart. So anyway, I'll get off that soapbox as well. But
hey, man, if a couple guys from Jersey, PA can do it, anyone can do it.
Exactly. Yeah. So that leads me to like, what are your future goals? Like what's 2026 look like? What's 2027 look like? Have you mapped that out? What are you trying to accomplish over the next couple of years with your business and your community?
Yeah. So our goal, number one, is we want to get an additional 3 co-living properties, anywhere from 7 to 10K additional in cash flow for the year, each month for the year. So if we can pull in an extra 70 to 120K a year in passive income, that's the goal, just with the co-living side. We do invest in other stuff, but that's our primary. But then we want to help. Our whole goal, our podcast is called Families for Financial Freedom. We want moms and dads to be able to come home from work, have enough to pay their bills, or even bring mom home from work to be able to be with the kids. But ultimately, we want mom and dad to be able to come home. So as we build this community, we want to help people get their first 2 to 5 grand a month to prove it, and then be able to scale 10, 15, 20, 25 grand a month. And we want to do cool things around the world with them. Like, we go to Hawaii every year. We're leaving next Friday to go to Maui, as we do every year. And I just want to be able to be like, type in the community, like, hey, headed to Maui. We're going to stay an extra 2 days, and anyone that can get out there, we'll do a 2-day live event with you. Let me know, right? Like, and bring your family, right? Like, that's what we want to do. Obviously, I'd like to get that business to a 7-figure annual business. Because the more the merrier, the more that we have people being financially free, coming home from work, being in control of their time, not having to have those stressful Sunday nights where you wake up dreading Monday morning, driving in traffic and sitting around all day with an unappreciative boss and people you don't like. We want to be able to just hang out with cool people and help them break free of that and be able to raise their children instead of someone else raising them 8 hours a day. So
yeah, I think it's brilliant, and people say it a lot, And by the way, I don't think that real estate investing and entrepreneurship is for everyone. I think that if you can find a job that you really, really enjoy, or enjoy enough, and you're happy, like, great, do your thing. Like, but I think that most people don't even think that there's another option out there. They don't even realize that what they've been fed their entire lives, from go to school, get a job, be in debt, contribute to a 401k. And this government subsidied, like, investment vehicle. To me, it's like, your best case scenario is you have enough to retire when you're 65. And I'm like, it was just even humble to hear what you just said, that your father passed away at 59. I mean, it's, my dad's 68, and I hear stories all the time of people, like, they've worked their whole lives and they finally get to retire and they last 2 years in retirement. It's like, that's not like a sign to wake up and to try to do something different, even if you don't get to ultimately where you want to go. Like, even if it doesn't work out perfectly, this is my first 18 months fully as an entrepreneur, and it has not 100% gone to plan. I can tell you that right now. But it's so different knowing that I'm, like, on this new path where it's like my ceiling is blown off. There's nothing above me. I can go as far high as I want, but now I'm responsible for my floor, not my W-2 job. And I have just found that, like, I operate better knowing that it's on me. And I think more people should think about that. Like, because the hockey stick is it's an opportunity that you do not have at your 9 to 5. And you can climb the corporate ladder, sure. But I had another conversation with a friend of mine recently who's making $350,000 as an engineer. And that's a lot of money, and he's doing great. But he told me, he's like, I have 80-hour weeks every single week. I don't even really get to see my kids. And I'm like, I wonder if so, like, what's the point? Almost like, what is the point? And I don't have kids yet. So maybe you could speak to this a little bit more than me, but I just know I'm not going to be that father, Yeah.
No, man, you're spot on. There's a couple of good things you said. I'll share this. I used to say this all the time, and then I had the reality of it back December 13th in 2024, which is, at some point in your life, someone that you love and care about is going to need either your time, your money, or both. And are you in a position to do that? Because you could make 350 grand a year, but if you don't have the time to go spend a week with a family member who's dying, then what's the point? And on December 13th, I got the grudging call from my dad saying he doesn't have much time. We had to hop on a plane, buy 4 plane tickets the next morning on a plane back to say our final goodbye. That was $5,000 right there. Right. And then, as much as I love my dad, he didn't have the same thought process. He didn't have assets. He rented his home, and I had to clear out his entire house and 59 years of stuff. And then ultimately, I was the only one that could pay for the funeral and everything. So that was a $20,000 to $30,000 bill right there. If we didn't have passive income to be able to have the time to go say goodbye, I never would have been able to do that. And if I didn't have the passive income to help pay for that, then I don't know what would have happened. And so the point that I want people to hear, and yes, you can love what you do. And in fact, I encourage you. I had a buddy who, in one of my mastermind groups, he worked for Google. He was making like 800 grand a year, and people were telling him he should quit his job and go all in on real estate. But he loved what he did. I was like, dude, that is the worst advice. Don't do that. Like, that's dumb. But what he did do is he continued to work at Google, but he kept putting money into other people's deals and with his business partners in case something was to happen. And so now he's got like a $10,000, $15,000 a month passive income. So that if he ever lost his job for whatever reason, restructuring, not because of his control, he would be fine. His wife and kids would be fine. And so even if you love what you do, continue to invest. And if it's not you doing it, do it in deals like you said, man, like do it in your deals that you're doing, because you still want that passive income to build up over time. So I can't stress enough around that. And I'll tell you this, my kids don't know. My oldest is 7.5. He'll be 8 in May. My youngest is 5 going on 6. And they don't know mom and dad to ever leave and go to an office all day. All they know is mom and dad go up to their office for a little bit and come back down and play with them. Right. And so it's cool.
I have a question based on this, and I didn't know if this conversation was going to go there, but I sometimes like to ask like fathers, because like as an entrepreneur, it's a unique position of like wanting to chase more and more. And then like if you grew up a certain way, it sounds like you didn't grow up with maybe you weren't poor. I don't know. You tell me. I don't know if you were poor, but you didn't have anything. So you were built. You have this mindset of I have to build because my parents didn't build, and that's okay. I'm sure they loved you. But it's now sharing. Can you instill a fire in your children that they didn't have to actually struggle? And I'm curious how you approach that with your kids. Like, do they know that you guys are really wealthy, or is it like, I've always thought like, how am I going to do this? Have you ever heard the saying? I've said this a couple times on podcasts. I don't want to butcher it, but have you ever heard the saying, my grandfather walked 10 miles to work, or my grandfather walked 10 miles to work. My father drove a Corolla. I'm in a Mercedes. My son will be in a Lamborghini, and then my grandson or whatever will be walking again. Have you ever heard that? Like that thing, because of the struggle that you had to go through to be able to build. How do you approach that? I'm
it's such a great question, man. Like, excellent question. First thing we do is I'm doing my best as a father, and I got to keep my mindset to let my kids struggle. I have to let them learn to struggle and experience pain and frustration and be upset. Not to the point where like, I'm like, haha. It's like, no, they got to learn how to handle adversity at a young age. And if you can't, that's where you get entitled little brats that I see running around this country right now. And I might get people fired up on this, but what we do is we bring our kids. When I rehab the property, there's a video of my kids cutting drywall with us, right? Like hammering things home. When we went to demo, like they were knocking out the wall with the hammer, which they absolutely loved. But we teach them. My kids, my oldest at 5 years old and my youngest at 3, we do financial literacy almost every day. And I would go, what's an asset? And they're like, gives us money. And I'm like, what's a liability? And like, takes away our money. So I'm like, is this property that we're rehabbing, is this an asset or a liability? Like an asset. And so we teach them what we're doing. We have them come. They have the experience. When we go look at properties, they come with us and we record it all, which is cool. But I want them to know when they want something, they're like, hey, Dad, we want to go, or we want a new car, right? And I'm like, okay, what kind of car? And they're like, that one. And they point out, it might be like a Chevy Tahoe. So I'll take them to the computer and be like, that's $53,000 base model. And I'm like, the payments are, going to be $1,800 a month. I'm like, how do you think that's going to get paid for? And they're like, we need to get a rental property. And so I'm teaching them that the desires that they want come. And this is one of the biggest things. And if adults can learn this, teach your kids this. But this is what I'm trying to teach my boys. And Grant Cardone does this with his daughter. I love it. Is what if your active income was the only thing you could pay your bills? Your bills are the only thing you can use, but your passive income, you could only spend that on luxuries. Like you want to go to the movies, you want to go to dinner, you want to grab Chipotle for lunch instead of going home. You can only do it through your passive income. Well, I don't have any passive income. Exactly. Get in the game, right? So if you can only spend your passive income to do the fun things you want to do, how much quicker would you be to investing and learning to invest and getting in communities like yours to learn how to do that? And it's a game changer. So our boys are learning this at a young age. And my goal is by the time they're 18, I want them to have a $2,000 to $5,000 a month passive income before they even get out into the real world.
Love it. That's great, man. I think you're doing things the right way. I kind of teed you up there. I kind of knew because I follow you on Instagram, like I've seen you do some of this stuff, but I wanted to hear it on the podcast. But one of the things that have changed my philosophy on investing is that when I've heard the phrase like your active income is somebody else's passive income. And that was like, wow. So I'm a real estate agent and I do it because I love it and I still need to make active income.
Yeah,
I'm not living on an island financially free, but I really enjoy it because it's so adjacent to what I'm doing. So that's a part of my active income. And I realized, I work for Real, that's the brokerage. And I cannot say enough good things about Real, but my active income is their passive income, right? Like they're taking a percentage on the split. I'm building a downline of other agents and that's their passive income. My money that is sitting in the bank account that I put my active income into is the bank's passive income, right? So if you think about it like that, and now I'm not saying that we have the ability to become the Rothschilds or we have the ability to become like Bill Gates, but I'm saying like you can do it on a smaller scale and have your passive income be built in that similar fashion. And I just think a lot of people think it's for someone else and you don't have to start out and be a millionaire. I mean, I love the way that you've broken it down and the way that you share your story, because it seems to me like people that are like military or come from or don't come from a lot of money, they start to build this and then they're the best teachers of it because they were already in that position of lack and not having. And I think that's probably why you made yourself such a good coach.
Yeah. I'll share this. I was speaking at a mastermind in Cancun in September. And afterwards, me and a couple of guys, we were sitting around the breakfast table the next morning and we were having this deep conversation and a real conversation around passive income is great, but you need active income. And so and if you think about it, like people who are successful, they do what they do, not because of the income, but because of the impact. And so you get to work because I'll never retire. I'm always going to coach people, help people build real estate, like build business. Like I'm always going to do that. But you do it because you want the impact. And once you reach a certain threshold, that's where you can do like passion projects and really make an impact on other people. And if me and my wife, if we didn't have the time freedom and the lifestyle we have, I wouldn't have been able to say yes to an impact project that my buddy brought to me back in May. And he got this download from God. And so now we've helped launch this company called the Millionaire Man Cave. And it's really transforming men to be the head of the household, to be better husbands, fathers, leaders, investors. And it's based on 6 key pillars. But I wouldn't be able to pour into those men and be able to help those men if we didn't have passive income. And so being able to not only have that passive income to cover your bills, but to be able to say yes to impact projects are so critical. And I think that's a piece that most people miss, even though I know active income's great, but I have a heart of helping people. And that's where I'm like, I need to handle finances so I can go make a difference in a bigger way on a bigger platform.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think most people just don't think it's possible. And I think that's why there's the advocacy for getting in the rooms where people are doing exactly what you want to do or the position that you eventually want to be in. I was just at like a networking event. It was more of like a guy's dinner. And I was actually the youngest guy there.
Nice.
And like there's guys in their 50s and 60s, and they were just talking about their experiences over the past several years. And I noticed how much they were trying to pour into me, being like the youngest person there, and how much they really wanted to help me. And there was so much wisdom being passed down. And these people were worth a lot of money. And I realized that as soon as you get out of your head that money is the root of all evil, like you are who you're going to be. And if you're a bad person, if you have more money, you're going to be a bad person amplified. And if you are a good person and you have more money, you're going to be a good person amplified. And I think that's the best possible way to look at it. And as long as you keep those values, I mean, the sky's the limit. So this has been a great conversation, Joe. I really appreciate you coming on. I always vibe with people from my area. So If people want to learn more about you, your story, they want to follow along, they want to join the mastermind, which I would recommend you guys check out. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you or your team, and how does that work?
Yeah, you can check me out on YouTube and Instagram, and the handle is the Joe Moffett with 2 T's and an E. You can go ahead, and our executive coaching company is Master Life by Design. You can reach out there, but I'm on all platforms that you can reach out to me: TikTok, Facebook, all of that. So, and if you're interested in the mastermind, it's in my Instagram handle, the Room Rental Income System. You can check that out and go through that, and then we can reach out to you.
Love it. Joe, I really appreciate your time. This was a fun conversation. Thanks for doing this today.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
Before we wrap this show up, I want to leave you with this. If you're listening to the show, chances are you're doing pretty well in your career. You're making maybe 6 figures. You're putting money into your retirement accounts, maybe stacking some cash in a brokerage account, but you're still waiting for that next level. And here's the truth. Waiting just costs you time. Every month you're on the sidelines is another month you could have had a property paying you and another step closer to financial freedom that you didn't take. Ryan and I know this because we stayed on the sidelines too long. We talk about this sometimes. We had the money, but not the guidance. And once we finally got our first property, everything shifted. It was the catalyst that built our entire portfolio and ultimately gave us freedom. And that's exactly why we built the Wealth Juice Inner Circle, to cut out wasted time, just give you the exact blueprint and surround you with a network of people who are closing deals every single week. So if you're tired of waiting and you're ready to finally get your first deal, click the link in the show notes and schedule a call with me. Let's map out your strategy and get you moving before another year slips by.